What we're going to do today is we're going to talk about the malacha of lisha. Lisha is kneading a dough, for example. Kneading. But before we begin, I want to just refer to something I think was misunderstood last class regarding mashing potatoes and things that we learned in the malacha of grinding. And grinding, for example, mashing potatoes, you're allowed to do it with a shinui. You're not allowed to do it, of course, with a potato masher, but you're allowed to do it with a fork, for example, when you need it, and so on and so forth. So I don't remember if we discussed that last time and what we said, but I have a recollection that maybe there was confusion with that, so I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Lisha is really pretty much very different than grinding, because grinding is taking a mass and breaking it into little pieces. Lisha is a little different. Of course, it may be the opposite, not exactly, but Lisha is taking little separate entities and creating a mass out of it. Like, for example, when you knead a dough, what you're taking is you're taking the flour and you're turning it into a mass where they're all stuck together through the agent of the liquid, the water, in the case of a dough. So you basically, the category of Lisha is taking small, tiny, separate entities, and through another agent, creating a mass out of it and making it into one chunk. Now, lisha refers to both, whether it's food or clay or whatever it may be. In either case, it's not only prohibited when it comes to food; it's prohibited with any kind of creating that kind of situation. But of course, we're going to focus on how it's prohibited in the kitchen as it relates to food. So, we defined lisha as kneading a dough, but it's also true with any kind of food. For example, taking smashed eggs and turning it into egg salad. So what you're doing is when you have the mashed eggs, you have the eggs are in little pieces. Once you mash them down little separate pieces, and when you make an egg salad with, let's say, mayonnaise or something else, the mayonnaise is an agent that really binds it all together and becomes one mass, which is also a form of lisha. Same thing with tuna. You take tuna, fish, and you mix it with mayonnaise, and you make it into, you're really binding all of it together. That is under the category of lisha, or cereal for a child. You take instant cereal, and you mix it together with water, and it becomes like a batter. That's like a lisha. That's the same idea. Doesn't mean everything is prohibited. I'm just giving you the definitions right now. Now, lisha, when you talk about a dough, you're taking flour and you're taking water, you're mixing it, and that becomes a heavy mass, a thick mass. When you're talking about a cake batter, so you take flour and you take whatever else you mix into the cake, right? Flour, eggs, milk, whatever you put into the cake, and you mix it all together, it becomes not a dough, but it becomes a batter. And a batter is also basically bringing mass together, little separate particles together and making it into a mixture where they are now attached, either in a thick batter or a soft batter. It makes no difference. It's all under the category of lisha. Now, we define lisha as taking a liquid or something, an agent, that takes separate particles, and when you mix the two, it becomes mixed together as a mass or as a soft batter or whatever it is. What's considered water? So we've already said before that it doesn't necessarily mean water or juice. It can also be mayonnaise. any kind of agent that is going to unite particles together into one entity, one big mixture, is considered lisha. And the truth is, and it's true, of course, with the other, it's either flour or breadcrumbs or whatever type of situation where you bring in cereal and those kinds of things. It's not necessarily only flour. It can be any kind of food that you make together with mayonnaise, water, juice, or whatever it is. Now, this is only, lisha is only with the smaller particle. For example, in the case of flour, and you mix it with water, the flour loses its separate identity and becomes part of it. Now it took on a new identity. It's part of the bigger mass. But let's say, for example, you take big chunks of salad and you mix them together with mayonnaise, yeah? Or let's say slices of banana in sour cream. You like this mixed together banana with sour cream and you eat it. Is that considered lisha, kneading? Or does that fall under that category? The answer is no. And the reason is because we define lisha as where the particles lose their identity and become part of a bigger mass, where you don't identify the flour or the breadcrumbs or whatever it is. It loses its separate individual identity. It becomes part of it. In the case of bigger chunks and pieces that are united by mayonnaise or whatever, it's still bananas, whatever. That's not. It's still bananas. It's still slices of banana that you're eating with sour cream. That's not considered lisha. Or, for example, big pieces of. You make a potato salad with mayonnaise. That's not lisha, because the pieces of potato are very big. They're chunks of potatoes that are with mayonnaise, but that's not considered lisha. Now, how do you usually knead a dough? You throw in the flour into the basin, and you pour water over it, right? What happens if you had water there first, and then you threw the flour into the water? Is that a problem? Same thing. Either way, it's the same thing. It's causing the same reality, the same end exactly. They're both prohibited. Now, in lisha, we're going to see that in this category of prohibited work on Shabbos, there's going to be a difference between a thick batter and a soft batter. Like a dough as opposed to a cake batter. A dough is a prohibition aminat Torah. Abideraisa, it's a biblical prohibition. That's the biblical prohibition of lush, of lisha, is a thick batter, a thick dough. Whereas a cake batter is a midrabanan. It's prohibited, but it's prohibited on the rabbinic level. And because of that, there are certain leniencies and permitted types of lisha that will fall into which are part of the halacha, and which we're going to discuss, of course, in the next 15, 20 minutes. So what's considered a soft batter, a thick batter? Of course, a dough, a bread dough, of course, is a thick batter, tuna salad, egg salad, these are thick masses. They're not soft. You can't pour them. You turn over the plate. It's not going to spill over. It's going to stay as it is. Maybe the whole chunk will fall out, but it's not going to pour out. Charoses, for example, cereal that's a thick cereal for kids. And again, I'm not so familiar with it because I don't usually do it. But the instant cereal, for example, I guess the more cereal you put in, the thicker it becomes.
Add it to the baby.
So if you add it and you make it thick with as less water and more, becomes like a farina type of thing, where it's not pouring, it's not watery, or not watery, but even if it can't pour, but it's more thicker, that's considered a thick batter, and it's midaraisa. If it doesn't flow out, then it's thick. What's a soft batter? Soft batter is like a cake batter, that we all know what that is. Applesauce is a soft because it can pour, you can pour a ketchup, and then a soft cereal for kids. So if it's soft, it's soft, yeah. So that's prohibited on the rabbinic level. Because it's only prohibited rabbinically, so there are some leniencies and permissible types of mixing that one is allowed. What about a very soft mixture where it's not even a batter, it's mamish like a liquid? For example, chocolate milk. You make chocolate milk. You take water and you mix it with what do you call the chocolate, with the Hershey's chocolate or whatever. What's it called? Whatever, chocolate powder. And you make chocolate milk. You didn't really, it's maybe not as thin not as watery as water itself, but it's certainly not a batter. It's a drink, basically. So that's not even that doesn't even fall under the category of mixing of lisha at all, and that's permitted. That's straight out.
What about jello?
To make jello, that's probably a blila. That's certainly prohibited midaraisa, probably. Midarabonin, probably. Jello. It's a good question. I never. That is considered a blila raka. I would think it's like an applesauce. Is it more resembling an applesauce?
The rabbi said you're allowed to make jello.
Yeah.
If
you make a great shinu with your own hands, we're going to talk about that. Yeah. If you use your hands or you use crisscross, right? Yeah. We'll talk about that. But jello is I would think is a blila raka, a soft batter, probably. Let's see. Okay, let's talk about the types of mixing that you're allowed to do on Shabbos. Usually, when something is prohibited, you're not allowed to do it even with a shinui, even with a change, in the abnormal way. Comes to lisha, the rabbis were more lenient, and they allowed certain lisha to be done if you do it in an abnormal way, not in the regular way. So let's see what those are. How do you, in the ultimate type of kneading, you knead a dough, yeah? What's the process when you knead a dough? You take a basin, you put into it flour, and onto the flour you put the water. Once the water is there, you take your hands and you start mixing it and kneading it into a full-fledged dough. So there are two processes over here. One is bringing the two entities together, the water and the flour, and then the actual mixing it with your hands. But how about, are you allowed to just throw the water into the basin with this flour? You're not going to mix it. Are you allowed to do that? So the truth is, if you think about it, even without mixing it with your hands, putting the water into that flour over a few minutes, it'll take some time, but it will begin to congeal, but become into a mass. It will become not a regular dough, but it will already begin on its own to form as a mass. And therefore, even the first step is prohibited. Right? Got it. Now, so we're going to separate these two steps. Each step has its shinuyim. Shinui means the change, the abnormal way. So I'm going to use the Hebrew term from now on, so you'll get familiar with the Hebrew terms. Each step has its own shinui, which makes it permitted to do if you apply the shinui. So in the first step is the bringing the two together. Yeah? So sometimes that's permitted if you do it like, for example, the shinui of the order. How would you usually make a dough? How would you usually do things? You'd put the flour in, then you'd put the water. So a shinui would be if you put the water first and then you throw in the flour afterwards. That's already considered a shinui in that first step. Whereas by
question, you're using dough as an example, but
no, of course you're not allowed to do that. Of course, I'm just giving you an example.
Yeah, because
you're not allowed to do
purpose of doing
that.
anything
No,
with
of course
dough
you're not
anyway.
allowed to do that. Yeah. Then there is the shinui in the actual kneading, in the actual mixing with your hands, and there's going to be over there also there'll be a number of types of changes that will be applicable to the actual kneading, which will not apply, of course, to the first step, which is the bringing the two together. Okay.
So making tuna fish, salad or egg salad, as you said, is allowed or not allowed on Shabbat?
You're allowed to make a shinui. Yeah, you're allowed to do it with a shinui. I'll talk. We're going to get there. I'll enumerate all that.
No, chickpeas.
I'll enumerate all that. We're going to discuss all that with its
No,
practical
because
application.
I'm wondering what they do in the kitchen on Shabbat. You're making
If you do it with your hands, you're allowed to.
you're not allowed to do
Or
that.
with if you
No.
do a crisscross, A regular mixing of the thing is not so simple.
But how do they know the laws in the kitchen?
They do it before Shabbos. They don't make the egg salad on Shabbos. I don't think they're making egg salad on Shabbos. They are?
I don't know.
I don't think so. I always see they before Shabbos.
Yeah, they do a lot of prep before Shabbos.
They do before.
Well,
Yeah, I think that stuff they do before.
But everything was done before Shabbos.
Not everything. They make.
but I'm
They
saying all
can
the
cut salads.
Yeah,
They can cut a salad. Be doing it on
Because
Shabbos.
they cut it pretty small,
Well,
so
it
you
has
gotta
to
cut
be
it.
clear.
They can't. They're not cutting it so small.
It has to be clear when they cut the salad that a salad has to be washed before Shabbat.
Obviously.
So you're not.
What do you mean washed? We'll say it's washed. What do you mean washed? You're not allowed to rinse a salad before on Shabbos? What do you mean, a
You
pepper?
can use
You're not
the
allowed to wash a
drainer.
pepper on Shabbos?
You can use the drainer to drain the salad, the lettuce.
What do you mean by drainer?
What
Colander?
about the colander?
Yeah, why not?
What is that? I don't know what that is.
The colander.
Like the drain pasta, like the thing with holes in it so you can...
No, you're not allowed to strain on Shabbos. Of course not.
Okay.
No, you don't do strain. We're not talking about straining on Shabbos. They're not doing pasta. They're not doing any of that. They're cooking everything before Shabbos. So I'm not following this. What are you referring to? Okay. If there's something that they're doing that they don't know, we need to tell them. Absolutely.
No, it has to be clear, like when you want to make your avocado salad on Shabbat, that you don't use cilantro which wasn't washed because you have to check for bugs. So you can't just take the
100%. I don't think we should be using cilantro at all. If you have to, anything they have to check for bugs, I don't want.
Oh, for example,
Even lettuce, I don't want them to use lettuce.
scallion. Yeah, they have to be, they have to know that scallion has to be cut lengthwise, has to be looked for, and they cannot do that.
I don't want them to do that at all. Not Friday and not Shabbos. I don't want to use it. I told them that already. Letters, things that have to be checked without a mashgiach, I don't want them done here. You need a mashgiach for that. You need someone that knows how to check these things. So sometimes you need to re-emphasize that, but that as a rule, I don't want that here altogether.
Maybe it has to be written on label on it.
Could be, maybe. Okay, it's a good idea. Okay, now, when we said before, when we said that you can do a shinui in you put the water, the liquid first, then the thing. That's only if it's a soft batter. A thick batter, you can't do that. That doesn't work. Like you said before, the example of a dough, Of course, that wouldn't work. You're not allowed to do it in any case, because that's a deraisa. That's anything that's a mideraisa, you can't do a shina like that. Deraisa means minatayra, biblical.
Right. No, the reason I had asked about the dough and you're using the example is...
I use an example because that's
even if you were allowed to make a thick batter, the dough, you can't do anything with it on Shabbat. You're not eating it raw and you can't cook
correct,
it.
Correct. You're right. I just use it as an example of when I say a change in the order, I'll say, but when we're talking about a permitted change, it's only if it's a soft batter. So if you're making a cereal for your kid in a soft batter, you have to put the water first, then the farina. If usually you would put the mix before the water. If you'd usually put the water before the mix, then you should put the mix before the water. Either way, whatever's normal, you do the other way.
And it doesn't matter if it's liquid is hot or cold?
Well, you have to make sure that you're not cooking. That's a separate thing. We're talking about even if it's lukewarm, where the issue of cooking is not a problem. Obviously, if the issue of cooking is a problem, then you have to look into that as a separate issue. But we're talking about when that's not an issue.
But
even the mixing is a problem.
Like hot cereal would be, soft cereal would be...
Yeah, but if you do it for a kli shlishi, if you're using a kli shlishi, for example.
So you can take the oatmeal, that is,
Instant oatmeal.
quick, instant oatmeal.
Does that cause a blila, a soft batter? But that's a
If
thick
you don't add
batter?
a lot of water, it could be thick.
If you don't add a lot of water...
If you add a lot of water, then it's a soft batter. But then you have to add all the water at one time. Because what happens is, if you do a little first, then it becomes a thick batter. Then you add more water, it becomes a soft batter. That's a problem because you made the thick batter before you made the soft batter. You ran into a problem. If you're making a soft batter, you have to put enough water at one time that you know that that's only going to produce a soft batter.
No,
What?
this question, let's say that you're someplace in the hotel and they have an oatmeal for Shabbat. For example, I'm just, we have to make it for a baby.
Okay.
You're cooking the oatmeal.
But you're not, because it's quick oatmeal,
It's already cooked, so.
If it's already instant. He's talking about if it's already cooked. It's like coffee.
But the question, as he said before, as Rabbi said before, is cooking after baking.
Coffee is not, it's like chocolate milk. It's not a problem. That's not a mixture. It's not a batter. It's not any kind of batter.
So why is it salt you can't dissolve in, like why is it you said you can't add salt to soup, but you can add chocolate powder to, because coffee, what's the difference between putting coffee?
I think the way the salt is made is something with the way the salt is made that's unique.
Yeah.
Sugar you're allowed to,
Yeah.
salt not. There's something the way it's made.
Yeah.
You said you couldn't put sugar in tea.
Oh, you could.
You could put sugar in tea.
That's
not a
You
mixture.
couldn't put lemon. You couldn't put
That's
lemon.
something else.
You
That's
couldn't put
something
lemon.
else. That's a different reason.
Cook soy sauce in soup instead.
Okay. Now, it gets a little, I have to tell you, the laws of Losh that we're talking tonight are a little complicated, so you got to follow me on this. If it's a little boring, I'm sorry. When we talk about these two steps, again, I want you to catch this. When there's two steps. The step of number one is bringing the two entities together, and then the step two is mixing it with your hand, or with some kind of a utensil, right? So we said that what's the shinui in the first step is to change the order. What about if you're making a mixture of, let's say, mayonnaise with eggs? You're making an egg salad. So are there two steps in making egg salad? So you put 2 spoonfuls of mayonnaise in the eggs, the loose eggs, the loose chopped eggs, and then you would, with your hands or with some kind of a utensil, you mix them. If you think about it, that first step will never produce anything. With water and flour, or water and instant cereal, the very mixture is going to create a mass. when you're talking about, even if you didn't touch it with your hands, it's something's going to happen as in terms of bringing it together and becoming a mass. When you're talking about mayonnaise and chopped eggs, it's not doing anything before you actually mix it with your hands. Therefore, you don't need to do any change. When you're making the egg salad, in the first step, there's no need for any change. You can put the mayonnaise first, the eggs first, either way. It doesn't make a difference. Because nothing is happening in that first step. What?
Same thing with tuna.
Same thing with tuna, yeah. Right? All those things that don't really become a mass on its own, there's no need for a shinui because you're not doing anything wrong to begin with. The first step is not doing any problem. Now, what's the change in the second step? So what's the change in the first step is to change the order. What's the change in the second step when you're ready to actually mix it? So it's like this. What you have to do is there's three changes that you have to do. When you're talking about a soft batter, you have to crisscross. The mixing has to be done with crisscross. You can't go mix it in the normal way like this. You have to go over it with your fork or your utensil, whatever you're using. Go like this, then come like this, and then back, and then forth, like this. You're not allowed to mix it like this. You just have to go straight that way, then this way, until eventually the whole mixture, it's all mixed. But that's a real shinui. That's a shinui. You're not doing it in the regular manner. That's for a batter, yeah.
But you're creating shapes, and it's like a
That's
drawing.
not creating shapes.
It's
How's that
drawing,
creating shapes?
You know?
How you drawing? That's not. Why is that drawing? Try it tonight. How you
For
do?
example, let's say, I don't know, the egg salad, you're doing like this, and one shape up, one up and down.
So why is that drawing? How's that drawing?
It's become like a drawing.
No, but right away you're mixing it the other way. It's not. You're not really drawing anything. I don't see you drawing. Then, another change is to do with your bare hands, not with a utensil. That's also a good change.
Or gloves?
No gloves, because that's the normal way of doing it. That would be considered the normal way of doing it. So you're not allowed to wear gloves. So therefore, if you don't like to use your hands, your bare hands, then you have to do it in a crisscross manner, as I just said. As in Hebrew, it's called shasi ve'eres. What?
Either or.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the first two changes that I said, crisscross and using your hands, that can be done even for a thick batter. The third change is to use the handle of a utensil. Like, for example, I said you're not allowed to use a fork, right? So if you're using a fork, you do crisscross. If you want to go around like this, you can do the fork with the handle. You do the other side of the fork, and you just mix it around like that. Or a knife, right? Or the handle of a knife, not the back of a knife. So that's all good. But that only works for a soft batter, not a thick batter.
Thick batter, we couldn't do anything with thick batter.
You can make a shina, a major. Those first two shinas you could. Yeah. You can't. In other words,
So thick batter, we said egg salad is a thick batter.
yeah.
Okay.
Hold on. Yeah. What was your question?
No, I got an answer.
Yeah. Okay. It means like this. I think your question is a good question, actually. You have a good question. The question is, if I said that the change in the first step doesn't work for a thick batter, there's two steps here, right? Mixing, bringing the two elements together. Over there, I said you have to change the order. If you put the water first, then put the thing first. If you put the The mix first. If you put the mix first, then put the water first. But that only works for a soft batter. For a thick batter, that change doesn't work. So how do you do it? How do you get the second step if you can't do the first step? We said that in the second step of the mixing, you can use certain changes. But if you can't make the first step happen, how do you make the second step happen? You understand the question? The answer is that you can make the first step happen before Shabbos. If the first step is there before Shabbos, I guess. Yeah. The other way I can think of is if you didn't do it before Shabbos. Yeah, let's say before Shabbos. Just want to look one thing up later before we finish. See if I'm I think the second you put it in, you start mixing it already. So the first step doesn't even happen yet. You're saying the mixture of the first step. But I'm not sure that works. I'll tell you, we'll look at that soon. Okay, let's move on. Now, talking about a sick person that has to have, that he won't be able to eat. The soft batter won't do it for him. He needs a more thicker batter. So how do you do it? So then, and you didn't mix before Shabbos. Oh, you didn't put the mixtures. You didn't bring the two entities there before Shabbos. So what do you do now? If it's a sick person, which is an extreme situation, so then you can change the order even for a thick batter. In other words, the rabbis extended that leniency even for a thick batter if we're talking about a sick person. You follow what I'm saying? Okay, good. But you're never allowed to use for a thick batter the handle of a thing. You have to do it with your bare hands or whatever. So for a sick person, for a regular, but let's sum this up. For a regular person, for a soft batter, you're allowed to mix the two together with a change, a shinui, which is you change the order, and then you can either mix it with your bare hands or crisscross or the back of a handle. But I'm sorry, the handle of a utensil, not the actual fork side, but the handle side. For a thick batter, you're not allowed to change the order. Because when it comes together, it's already creating the situation. It's a midaraisa. It's not because it's a biblical prohibition. Changing the order is no good. You would have to do it before. You have to bring the two entities together before Shabbos. On Shabbos, you can use the first two of the changes of the actual mixture, which is crisscross, or with your bare hands, but you cannot use the back of a utensil or the handle of a utensil. When it comes to a sick person, if you didn't do it before, you didn't bring the mixture together before Shabbos, you can bring it together on Shabbos with a shinui, which means to change the order, and then use the first two methods of the actual mixing, crisscross or bare hands, but you can never use the back, the handle of a even for a sick person. In other words, by a sick person, the great leniency is that you can even bring the two together on Shabbos with the shinui. Clear, yeah? Now, there are certain thick batters, thick mixtures, that the moment you bring the two together, it forms already there's certain things that the moment you bring them together, it already mixes. It becomes already a mass. So therefore, you're not allowed to make them. Those are not allowed to be made. Because on Shabbos you're not allowed to bring them together, and before Shabbos it's already so on Shabbos it doesn't happen. But you're allowed to, for example, he gives an example of the instant oatmeal. The example that I saw was the instant oatmeal. Right away it comes together as soon as the water is mixed with the... So in that case you have to add a lot more water to make it a soft batter. A soft batter you can make on Shabbos with the changes, changing the order and so on. Now, all this we talked about till now is creating new situation, a new mixture. What happens if there's already a batter from before Shabbos and you want to add to that batter? Are you allowed to do that? In other words, the mixture already happened. You're adding now flour or make cake mix or whatever it is that you're adding to make it a thicker batter or to improve the batter. This is also a problem. But you're allowed to do it with the above-mentioned changes. Just if you're allowed to make a new mixture with the changes, you certainly are allowed to add to a mixture with these changes. But without these added changes, you're not allowed to do it. Yeah. Now, when you want to go from a thick batter, you want to make it a soft batter, you can go both ways. You can make a soft batter into a thick batter, and you can go from a thick batter into a soft batter. By adding water, you make it a softer batter. So when you're adding water to a thick batter, you want to make it a soft batter. So you're allowed to only do it with your hand, with your bare hands. Then you don't have to do any changes in the first step. In other words, when you're pouring the more water, you don't have to pour the water into the thing first and then pour the batter into the water. Usually you do it the other way around. You pour the water into the batter. In this case, you say maybe you have to pour the batter into the water. He says you don't have to do that. Yeah. But what you do have to do is when you mix it, you have to mix it with your bare hands and, like the crisscross type of situation.
How about the back of a spoon?
To make it a thick batter, you're not allowed to, no. Because you're going to make it to make it a softer batter. See, that's a question because see what happens is, because it's already a thick batter, when you're putting in more water, so before it becomes a soft batter, there's a certain thickness. So it's considered like a, so you stay away from that shinui, which is not allowed to be done for a thick batter.
Because if you're making like oatmeal or instant oatmeal, you're talking about a temperature you probably wouldn't put your fingers in.
What?
I said if you're making an instant oatmeal,
Yeah.
which I always thought you weren't allowed to do.
Well, you're only allowed to do it if it's a soft batter.
So you
Very
pour,
soft.
You pour a lot of you have
to
a lot of
put a
water.
lot of
you
water.
pour that
Soft batter you can use.
but it's but the problem is it doesn't
The
go.
utensil on the opposite side,
Yeah.
yeah.
It doesn't go automatically to a soft batter.
It does. Why not? If you have a lot of water, no?
It's still there's a point where how thick is thick,
No, we defined how thick is thick. If it can't pour over,
No, but I
if it's not a cake batter is soft,
Yeah, I
a dough
understand.
is
Yeah.
thick.
Right.
So if it's going to be like a dough, you're not allowed to, like a farina,
Right.
like a porridge. It's going to end up like a porridge. It's no good. You're not allowed to do that.
A lot of water.
Understand?
I think I'm better off just not doing it.
What?
I think I'm better
Better
off.
off not doing
It's
it.
better off not doing it than all
Well, if I always have the rule that's a cop-out. Learn the laws and know how to do right. You want to enjoy Shabbos. To stay away from everything because I don't know, that's ignorance is bliss. That's what they say. Ignorance is bliss for who? For fools. For the ignorant. Now, what about mixing two mixtures, two batters, one with the other? So you're allowed to do that. If a soft into a soft, you're allowed to mix. A thick into thick, you're allowed to, because you're not really doing anything. You haven't done much. Like, for example, if you have 2 plates and each one is egg salad with mayonnaise, right? Eggs and so they're both salad and two. You're allowed to mix it. You're allowed to mix it. You're allowed to make it into one chunk. Why not? A soft batter into a thick batter, you're allowed to do with all the changes that we said. Just like you're allowed to create a new one.
Soft batter into a thick batter.
Yeah. In other words, mixing a soft with a thick,
Like
you're allowed to do with the shinuyim that we said.
like tahina into hummus.
If the hummus would be a thick batter,
Right, and tahina is a thin batter.
probably, you're right, that's a good example. But only if the result will be a thin batter, a soft batter.
Right.
If the end result will be a thick batter, then you have a problem. You're not allowed to do that so simply. In other words, if it'll end up into a thick batter, then you're allowed to do it with those changes. Just like you're allowed to make a thick batter with those 2 changes, crisscross or with bare hands. So a thin batter into a thick batter where the result will be a thick batter. So it's a thick batter, basically. You're allowed to use the shinuyim that you're allowed to use for a thick batter. Any questions? You all clear? Makes sense? Okay. Now, what I could do is I can go through to just sum it up with all the practical applications of this, which we already did all of them. The examples that I gave are really the practical applications, but we can go over them as we're left with 5 minutes. I wanted to talk about something else, but we'll see if we can make it. Okay. Let me give you some practical applications. So we talked about egg salad. So if you want to make egg salad on Shabbos, you have to do it with a shinui. What's the shinui? Either first you have to change the order. I'm sorry, you have to crisscross or we'll do it with your hands. Okay. If you're doing it with oil, see there's a difference if you do it with mayonnaise or with oil. Because if the oil is the mixing agent, so oil could already bring it together even before you mixed it. You see, before we said if you mix it, you put in mayonnaise and chopped eggs, it's not going to mix anything before you actually go ahead and mix it with your hands. But in the case of oil, it may be different. So in that, if it's better to do it before Shabbos, in all these things, it's better to make all these things before Shabbos. If you can do it on Shabbos, you do it with a shinui. What's the shinui by egg salad with oil? Change the order when you bring the 2 together, and then do it with your bare hands or crisscross the mix. Okay? Baby cereal. So if it's a loose mixture, baby cereal may be prepared with milk, formula, water, or applesauce to form a loose mixture, so long as the proper shinuyim are employed, like we said before. I think we discussed this all. I don't think there's a need to repeat all this. When I gave you the basis for everything, I gave you always good examples, so you know how to apply it. Are you allowed to mix mayonnaise with ketchup? And to make you're allowed to. There's no problem. There's no problem over there. Or horseradish. The what?
I guess you're making a thinner batter.
It's not thinner. How is it thinner? Ketchup is a soft batter. And mayonnaise.
Is thick.
It doesn't flow.
Yeah, but it doesn't.
But it's not but what are you mixing over here? In other words, the mayonnaise is done before Shabbos. The mayonnaise is already different before Shabbos. The ketchup is already made before Shabbos. So you're basically taking. What would be the problem over here? The mixture is nothing. You didn't do anything. This is permitted. Bottom line. All right, let's talk about something else for the last 2 minutes.
For baby cereal, are you allowed
Yeah.
to use the hot water in
If you're not cooking, if it's a kli shlishi. Yeah, you have to avoid the issue of cooking.
Baby food, you do a shinoi.
There's two problems with baby food. One is cooking and one is mixing.
No, like it's already mushed. It's at a applesauce.
It's already
Yeah.
made before Shabbos, like the little bottles.
Yeah, it's already made.
So what's the problem?
If you're adding and you're dissolving
What are you dissolving?
the rice cereal or something,
Oh, so you have to make sure that you're doing this in the right way.
you do a shinoi.
Certainly.
If you add it usually to it, then you would add the other way around.
I know, but what is the result going to be? A thick batter?
It's thicker.
So he says like this, a baby cereal with a thick mixture. So we learned that already. It may be prepared as a thick mixture only in the case of necessity for a baby who does not eat loosely mixed cereal. Okay? Like we said with the sick person, similar with the sick person. When doing so, the order of adding the ingredients to the bowl must be reversed, and the stirring must be done in a crisscross fashion. So for example, when you're going to put it into you're talking about the little bottles that you buy in Publix.
Right.
It's not so simple. You can't just take a spoon and mix it together. If you're adding into it, that's not permitted.
Yeah, you can take a bowl, put the rice
Put
in
the
there,
bowl,
and
put
then
the rice in first, and then put the applesauce, and then go like this with this spoon fork, or do with your hands, if you like doing that. It's not so, you have to be, this is something that looks like that's something you do. So I'm glad that you asked that question. All right, there's another topic I want to talk tonight about. It's 9 o'clock already, but we'll talk about it anyway. And that is the issue of meilid. There's a malacha, there's something the rabbis prohibited to create a new entity. Let's talk, for example, taking water or taking ice, a chunk of ice, and crushing ice and making it water, right, that it dissolves. You're not allowed to do that. You're also not allowed to take ice cubes and put it near the fire so it dissolves quickly. If you need water, you ran out of water, you want to get ice, you don't have time till it dissolves. I mean, it's a little far-fetched over here, but the point is, you're not allowed to do that. To put ice cubes in a liquid, in water, to make it cold, like you serve it on the table in a pitcher, that's not a problem. Why? Because what's the problem with crushing the ice? You're taking a ice cube and you're turning it into something new, into a new entity, which is dissolved. It's now dissolved. It's now water. But if you're putting it into already a pitcher of water where the result of the melted ice you can't see, it's not turning into anything. It's becoming part of the larger pitcher of water. It's not visible. You don't see it, so it's not recognizable that became a new entity. So that's why we're allowed to do that.
Like ice and iced coffee.
Ice and anything.
Right.
Ice cubes in a drink. Yeah.
So I have clumps of ice, because sometimes I don't have a good ice, can't use the ice maker on Shabbat. So I collect ice, right, from the ice maker before. I put them in a plastic bag. And they've all
You put it in the freezer.
Yeah.
Before Shabbos.
Yeah. So they're all clumped together. So can I kind of break that up to at least put it into a pitcher of water?
No, you shouldn't.
No, I couldn't break that.
To crush ice, you're not allowed to. No.
Yeah.
You shouldn't.
There's no way to
crushing it in order to put it. He's not crushing it to make a new thing. He's crushing it to get
But,
it.
Put ice into
you're
a
crushing
pitcher.
it, but you're first crushing it.
Yeah.
You should just put the whole thing into the. What is it? Big chunks of ice.
Yeah.
Why don't you just have like an ice cube thing?
Right.
Just a tray of an ice cube tray, and you have ice cubes.
Yeah, I gotta clean the freezer
That's-
up for that.
What do you mean? You buy them.
No, I have. It's gonna take up space where I have food in the freezer, so
Whatever.
It's
Okay.
not a big
So
deal.
giving you a solution to the problem. This is taking up much more space. Big chunks of ice is taking up more space than a tray of ice cubes.
No, but all of a
I'm not
sudden you
following
have
this.
company on Shabbat,
Yeah.
and it's hot.
Yes.
And
You
you
want
want
to have
to
ice
serve
cubes. So you
It's
need
actually,
ice
we only
cubes.
did it on Sukkot. It was only on Sukkot.
What was the? I don't know. What did you do? What was the issue?
All the ice is clumped together, so I took it out, and I kind of banged it on the counter. to
Okay,
get
so if
smaller
you're breaking
pieces.
it into two pieces, that's not called crushing ice.
Yeah, I don't think it was crushed.
That's no. If
I
you're
wouldn't call
breaking
it
it into two pieces, that's something else.
Right. Just trying to break it into a smaller piece I could put into a pitcher of water so that the guests
That's
would,
not crushing. I don't think
okay.
that's considered
All right.
crushing ice.
What if you,
And that was Hagim. Hagim would be different than Shabbat?
No, not with those things. Pashtus, not with those things.
but if you have a bag
Things
of-
that you can do before Shabbos, you shouldn't do on Shabbos, on Yom Tov.
Yeah.
Only that which you can't do before Shabbos, Yom Tov, then you can do it on Yom Tov in order to eat. But something you could have done before, like cutting taking a tree, a fruit off a tree. I want to eat it, so I'm allowed to do it. No, you could have done that before Shabbos. So you can't before Yom Tov,
Yeah.
so you can't do it on Yom Tov. That kneading and baking and
Yeah.
cooking, you could do it before Yom Tov also, but you can't compare it to fresh baked goods than a day old. So that's why you're allowed to do those things on Yom Tov. Whatever is enhanced on
Right,
Yom
right.
Tov, you're allowed to do on Yom Tov. Whatever you could have done before, you're not. But that's a separate thing. Yeah, what was your question?
the ice thing again, so I do the same thing sometimes. I take the ice out of the ice maker, and I put it in a bag, and sometimes it...
Before Shabbos.
Before
Yeah.
Shabbos. And it forms, it all kinds of sticks together, but they're all still in their separate cubes. So,
Yeah.
but if you go to break, take it off,
I don't know if
you knock
that's
it on
called
the table and it
crushing.
breaks back into their separate cubes, is that okay?
I don't think that's called. Well, if it's happening on its own, it's not.
No,
That's not.
if I bang it on the counter and they all just separate again back to the way they were originally.
It's a good question. If you're allowed to break up things like that.
Now you're not making like smaller than they originally were, because they just most of the time they just break off into the same size that they were.
Right.
But because once you take them out, they kind of, for some reason, they kind of stick together. And you can't, they're not loose
Out
anymore.
of the ice maker. So you
Yeah.
have an ice maker.
Because when I put my refrigerator on Shabbos mode, for some reason, the ice maker freezes up. The ice that's already been made freezes up.
Uh-huh. And you don't need to have ice cube trays.
No.
Today's things they have built in like ice maker, so when it's in Shabbat mode,
What happens? The ice maker's in Shabbat?
Yeah.
everything's
is
in
there?
Shabbat mode. The ice maker stops working,
Uh-huh.
and I guess with the old one we used to have, you might be able to put your hand into the big tray and grab some ice out, but
So how does it work? I don't know how this thing works.
You have the same thing, Rabbi,
I have.
at home, yeah,
On the door.
on the door.
Oh, you're not allowed to use that on
no,
Shabbos.
I
Of course
don't.
not.
That's why I have
That's
to.
why we
That's
have
why the
to
only way to
take
get
the ice
ice out is.
They're cubes. They're individual
But to get to the cubes is
You pull out the drawer.
I gotta move my whole.
I don't know.
I gotta move my whole fridge because the left side door is where the wall is, so it's a big. I can't do it.
So
It's
what do
not
you
gonna
do? So you have a
That's why
separate
we
ice
do
maker.
that.
No, I either do it before Shabbat,
Ah.
and they all come together. We don't really use ice; it's more for guests, Should get
Oh.
we should get a little thing, and that's it.
Yeah, that's the best thing.
Yeah.
But so if it's happening on its own, it's one thing. To go and with you to cause the ice to melt by putting it near a hot place with melting, your involvement is where it becomes prohibited. But if you put it on the like on the counter,
And it happens
and
naturally.
over hours it becomes, you take out a bottle of milk from the freezer and you put it in the sink, and it defrosts. That's not such a problem. Okay, let's stop today. Okay.
Oh, yeah.